What were your thoughts to Edwin Diaz's injury?
Mostly disbelief, because I was literally sitting at my desk watching the game, and I was like, and it was a great game too, and it was really enjoyable to watch. And then I think, I mean, I watched Edwin pitch the ninth and close it out. I was like, oh, that's great. And I just turned it off and started, walking around and doing my own thing. And I got back to my phone and I was like, wait, what? Like, this can't actually be true. So I had to go back. I was like, oh my God, like it's like the first thought is, typical Mets, like this is how it goes. Just sign him to a big deal and he gets hurt immediately. But I mean, it's one of those things where like they weren't even doing anything like crazy. He was like literally hopping up and down like 5 inches. So it's like, if it was going to happen there, it probably would have happened somewhere else. I mean, who knows? Like you can make all the arguments about him not, they wouldn't be celebrating in spring training, but the Mets did that like 3 years ago in spring training. They like mocked the World Series celebration too. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just, really unlucky, really unfortunate for Edwin and the Mets, but such is life. I mean, they're just like kind of like the next man up opportunity here. So they built a pretty deep bullpen, I think deeper than it was last year. So, some guys are just gonna have to step up.
So, yeah, the long-term effects now, because he signed for this big contract, the 5 years, $100 million, so he's going to get 4 more years out of that. Luckily, from what we've heard, the Mets don't even have to pay it. MLB will pay it because it was the World Baseball Classic sanctioned event, so it's their charge now. So are you worried about the long-term effects potentially of that injury, the leg injury that he had?
I think only a little bit, because we don't really have a lot of comps for this kind of injury for him. And I think it's his right knee, so it's his push knee too. So I think there's like, I think it was like Zach Eflin or something was like the one comp that had his knee injury with like off the leg he was pushing off the rubber with. So it could be worse. It could have been an arm injury. I mean, if it had to be something serious, I mean, I'd rather it not be an arm injury. So, I mean, I'm a little concerned about how he's going to come back, because of we don't know exactly how someone in his situation will bounce back from it. But I mean, it could be worse. I mean, if it was an arm injury, I would be much more concerned about it.
As everybody knows, we are talking to our friend, Elite Sports New York editor and creator of MLB Daily Dingers, Matt Musico. Matt, Carlos Correa didn't work out for the Mets. I know a lot of Met fans were excited when you heard that he was heading to New York, and then he's not heading to New York, and then he was heading to New York, then he's not heading to New York. Now he's over there in Minnesota. Crazy stuff has happened for the Mets this offseason, and that was one of them. Were you happy that he was going to be a Met, and then all of a sudden we're even more happier that the Mets decided not to give him a contract with that ankle injury where everybody is saying that could affect him in 5 or 4 years? Or are you disgusted with the Mets not extending and giving him the contract that you believe he deserved?
Well, I think like most Mets fans, by the time it actually got to the end and there was actually a conclusion, I was just happy it was over at that point, because it went on for what was like, it was right before Christmas. I think we got word of like the agreement, and then it went on for what, maybe like 3 weeks or something like that.
Yep.
So just kind of not, because while they were trying to make it work, like the Mets were kind of in a holding pattern. Like, not that they had a whole bunch of extra work that they were going to do after that, but like they were waiting around to see, okay, if this did get finalized, what do we do with Escobar? What do we do with other guys that are potential trade pieces? Still got to fill out some pieces of the bullpen, things like that. Fill out a little bit of the bench. So, of course, I was incredibly stoked when the news first dropped. I mean, the day before when we got word of the Giants press conference getting postponed, like I joked on Twitter, like Steve Cohen enters the chat, and I was like, could you imagine if that happened? And then I woke up at like 5 o'clock the next morning to all these notifications, and I was like, no, this can't actually be happening. And like my 3-year-old like saw me like pacing back and forth. I was like, I can't believe this is going. It's like, Daddy, are you okay? I'm like, I was like, I'm fine, and you will also be fine too. This is going to be great. But then, of course, it didn't happen. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to trust their judgment. It's not like they didn't do their due diligence. It's not like it just kind of all fell apart in 12 hours, 24 hours like it did with the Giants stuff, too. So they really tried, and, they just weren't willing to take that risk.
Yeah,
I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, I guess we're, at least if anyone's saying typical Mets, at least we're not the San Francisco Giants, who thought they were going to get Carlos Correa and Aaron Judge, and they get neither one of them. Or as John Heyman likes to call him, Arson Judge.